Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. Let's waste no time. Oh, yeah. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Closings cause a stir in local old-timers. They're mine, old-timers. Now, in the middle of a winter mess, were multiple reports of closings and several reports of people calling off work. Now, the loss factor is what got the story, has the story trending, because if a business is closed, no one is working and the business can't make any money. Now, the talk goes on further because if the schools are closed, then the long-term impact on the time lost in the classroom is also serious, thus getting the story, get the attention of the old timers in the area who see this as a problem, and thus sliding the story into the top 8 because old timers. Back in my day. Now, only time will tell how this story will develop over time, because the lost time on the business workroom floor and the lost time in the classroom still has stories like these trending. That's why story number 1 made it this week. Story number 2. Youngstown homicide rate is down in 2024. Ed Runyon has a report published January 18th focusing on the 20 people who lost their lives in Youngstown due to homicides, which was 2 fewer than in 2023 and in 2024. Now, in 2023 and 2024, it was 2 fewer. Now, the report goes on to mention the details that unfolded as the city did everything to stop the violence, with some cases yet to be solved, but the article does highlight that the city has a 60% rate when it comes to solved cases, compared to other cities, thus getting this story into the top 8. That's why story number 2 made it this week. Story number 3: the giving mood in 2024. Sheen Barron has a report on giving in 2024. If you did not know, the Community Foundation of Mahoning Valley awarded $3.3 million in competitive grants in 2024. The report is filled with the number of amounts given out throughout the year by CFMV, with the leading recipient being the Trumbull Neighborhood Partnership, receiving $68,400 for a wellness initiative program, according to the report. Now, the report goes on to mention other organizations that received grant money. That's why story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4: housing plans are in the works. The Vindicator has a report by Pat Littlewitz explaining Youngstown's strategic plan when it comes to the city's approach on housing. The article goes on further, citing the future, and it even highlights the bullet points in the plan. Now, this adds to a growing push across the nation to expand the nation's affordable housing stock, which there's not plenty of. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Story number 5: $3.4 million in grants. New playground, splash pads, pickleball courts, sports courts, basketball courts, trails, and other attractions will be coming to local parks because of a state grant by ODNR, after the department approved more than $3.4 million in projects to improve outdoor recreational opportunities for Ohioans across the state, according to a Vindicator report published January 17th. Now, both Mahoning and Trumbull County were mentioned in the report, in the improvement package. Story number 5 made it this week. Story number 6: utility rates are on the rise in Campbell. Sheen Barron has a report published January 17th explaining how Campbell is beginning the year with a utility rate increase for their garage, sewer, and water bills. Now, garbage will go up 75 cents. That's $17.25 per month compared to $16.50 per month last year. Now, sewer rates will also go up $1.35 to 16. Well, they will go up $1.35, so they're going to go up to $16.30 from $14 and 96 cents last year. Now, water bills will rise 66 cents. Now, that's an increase from $13.15 last year to $13.81 in 2025. Now, the report does mention programs put in place for those in need of assistance and ends with other plans put in place by the mayor. Now, the continued rise on just about every basic service, the rising costs on every basic service is what got the story in. As we start number 6, also made to the top 2 this week because everything is increasing. Big headline. Story number 7 in the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, if you do want to catch the show, if you don't get up this early, I do upload it to the website on Monday. So if you don't get up this early, you want to catch the show, do log on to the website and you can view the show on our YouTube page. Story number 7. Another rate increase to be concerned about. Dan Pompley has a report published January 17th explaining how dispatch rates are set to rise in the valley, with Austintown increasing other costs as well. Now, the article is filled with the costs associated with providing emergency dispatch services throughout the area and goes on further to explain why costs are rising about 1.65%. Now, the article does mention the failure of levies as a factor. That's why story number 7 also made it to the top this week. Big headline. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made this week for you to keep you informed. Folks, if you want to contribute to the show, it does not take much. All you do is visit the store at 5648 Market Street in Mormon, Ohio, and buy something in the store, or visit the website at method8inc.com or the website on the screen, and you can buy something on the website to show us some support, folks. Every little bit counts. Story number 8, the local drug problems continue. The city of Youngstown has a lot of goals, and decreasing its drug problems is one of them. Now, because the drug stories continue to pour in, already this year on January 17th, a report by Ed Runyon explained how a Youngstown man was arraigned on new federal drug charges. Now, in 2024, it was yet another year that was filled with drug-related incidents, with a number of headlines proving that the local community needs to get over the drug problem. Now, in 2023 alone, the Ohio Drug Task Force seized more than $63 million in illegal drugs. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 8 made to the top this week. Well, folks, our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. You're the Mediator. Me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
Tune in and don't forget to subscribe to Method 8 Inc. YouTube channel. You can also watch free public entertainment. And don't forget to show some support by visiting www.method8inc.com by buying something, clicking something, watching something, or just reading something. You can also sponsor a program as well. That's www.method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
What does Method8inc.com Media Center have that I need?
Small prints, event consulting, photography, business consulting, technical consulting, entertainment consulting, fundraising advice, event videography, movies, news, publishing, media, books, entertainment, acting, broadcasting, public relations, access to the visual and performing arts, ink and black ink refills, audio recording, graphic design, theater, minor computer and cell phone repair, and they're located at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. every Monday through Friday. The list goes on and on.
Method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
Oh yeah! And yes, we are chipmunks.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week, folks. This week we're focused on kids again. Another 17-year-old committed a mass shooting, and I went to the store a while back and I seen one of my old principals, and I looked at her. I said, "How you doing, Miss So-and-so?" And she said, "Oh, I'm doing fine, Brian." I said, "How's the schools?" And she looked at me, and she just looked at me. Back in the day, principals were allowed to give paddles and discipline kids, but this was a different look on her face. She looked afraid. She said, "Brian, we can't do nothing. We can't discipline the kids. We can't tell them what's between right and wrong." He said, "It's changed." And I looked at her, and I never seen this look on her face, because when we were kids, this woman would walk around the halls with authority, And when kids were acting up, it was ass time. It was woman. You would be straightened up. You bring a gun to school, you be straightened up real quick, because that principal was right there. You did something wrong. You're doing wrong. You're doing wrong. Now, things have changed. And that's why if you see a mass shooting in the news, you have to think, why or how did we get to the point where kids are now telling adults what to do? Adults are afraid of children. The children are the authority. Woo! Let's waste no time, folks. Let's pray and hope for a brighter future. Let's get to it. Story number 1. The energy grid remains a concern. In the midst of terrible winter storms, TCD has a headline focusing on how new data reveals the staggering amount of electricity being used. Now, this is all while costs are rising. The report goes on to explain how energy demand is booming due to consumption and the fact that technology keeps expanding its base every year. The question now is, what are dependence on electricity? With our dependence on electricity so much? That's the question. With our dependence on electricity so much, what are the plans for the energy grids of the future? How will they keep up? Folks, this story is still developing. That's story number 1. Story number 2. The American border stories continue. Daily Mail has a report explaining how a Border Patrol agent was shot and killed some hours after the inauguration of now President Donald Trump. Now, what got the story in is the fact that the incident did not occur at the border between Mexico and the United States, but it was near the border between the United States and Canada. Now, the incident took place in Newport, Vermont, while the agent was performing a traffic stop. Folks, this is all in the middle of Trump's harsh stance when it comes to the American borders. Folks, this story is still developing. That's story number 2 made it this week. Story number 3. New study shows people depending on violence for solutions. After the holiday of Dr. Martin Luther King, Fortune has an interesting piece on how a global study shows that the majority of 18 to 34-year-olds now support using violence and disinformation to drive change instead of peace and real information. Now, the timing of this piece is amazing because the entire report shows frustration and the lack of trust in businesses and government. The survey from 32,000 people in 28 countries even touched on topics like race and other economic questions. Folks, this story could explain the concern with today's culture. That's why story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4. What will the federal workforce look like under Trump? Fortune has a report explaining how Trump has put out an executive order calling all federal employees back to the office for 5 days a week. This is just one of many moves being made by the Trump administration in what looks like a new vision for the federal workforce. The Washington Post has a report on how Trump is already taking action by ordering federal DEI programs to leave their post. Now, these are diversity, equity, inclusion programs. Now, I believe that's what it is, equality and all that stuff. Now, there are also stories still in circulation about the Trump administration's plan to downsize federal payrolls to save $2 trillion in government spending. One headline in Reuters asks the question if unions can stop it. Folks, this story is still developing. That's what number 4 made it this week. Well, folks, there are top 4 international headlines developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 4. So don't you go anywhere. The Mediator, me, Brian West. I'll be right back. into Method 8's YouTube channel to check out the top interviews that made it throughout the years and months. Visit method8inc.com. Check out all the community interviews if you want to check it out. Method8inc.com. Buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Oh, yeah. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, we're heading into this year, and the question now is, have children become more violent? Even in sports. You see old timers talking about the new school of sports and how things have changed for the worse, and the game has changed, and they're actually have children either become more tougher or softer or more violent or peaceful. These are questions headed into 2025, and although crime rates are actually decreasing, but we're seeing more mass shootings, more gun stories, more drug stories. So it asks the questions of, children are depressed, conflicted inside, defeated, depressed, and wanting to commit suicide and using drugs and drinking. This is what's happening. So what happened to the role models is the question. I had a basketball tournament league, and I remember the kids got into a fight. They were fighting and one punched each other. Get back! Bust the other kid in the face. I mean, it was terrible. But this is a new environment we live in, is that a lot of people do not want to invest in children anymore. And when they do, they don't want to take on the problems, folks. This is serious. Even some coaches get out of the business of coaching because the job is terrible. The kids don't want to work. They don't want to come to work. They want to sit and play ticket hawk and big and boo and do the dancey loo in front of the computer Jew. Well, folks, heading into 2025, we got some questions and answers. And will the old school light a fire under the new school, or will the new school light a fire on the old school, folks? We've got to find a way to change the world. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. I'm thinking ahead. World don't do very much. Holding in your hand. Hold up in the future. You gotta understand. What don't get no better. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 5. Speaking of world and workers, U.S. workers at some major stores are still in top headlines. In these harsh economic conditions, ABC News has a report explaining how over 18,000 Costco employees have voted to approve a nationwide strike. Now, the report adds to a growing list of businesses who chose to strike in 2024. Some of these strikes are carrying on to 2025, and now a month into 2025, the trend continues due to high prices and the fact that many workers are still living paycheck to paycheck. Now, what got the story in is the fact that the wholesale giant reported $254 billion in annual revenue and $7.4 billion in profits. Now, each story making headlines seems to be focused on how companies are managing their profits when it comes to paying their employees while the costs continue to rise. Folks, this story is still developing. That's story number 5. Made it this week. Story number 6. What one hospital is doing to combat medical debt. The Guardian has a report focusing on what a giant U.S. hospital chain is doing to combat medical debt. Now, what the hospital did was they revamped their billing and collections practices and boosted the number of patients who could qualify for charity care. Now, the article is filled with information and bright ideas on how the process is unfolding under a nonprofit structure. Folks, the report on the continued rise in medical debt and talk of cancellation of this medical debt is what has these stories trending. That's why story number 6 also made it to the top 2 this week. Big. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week for you to keep you informed. Folks, if you don't get up this early and you do want to check the show, I do upload to the websites on Monday. The website on the screen if you don't get up this early. Story number 7. Cost and tariffs still a major concern. NBC News has a report updating Americans on Trump's plan to carry out tariff threats. Now, the report explains how he would put a 25% tariff on all goods coming into the United States from Canada and Mexico, and a 10% tariff on Chinese goods. Now, experts are weighing in, and this could shift companies to scramble to find cheaper ways to do business. Now, one report goes as far as to explain how the consumer will have to suffer the most, because when it comes to costs and the costs go up, the product price will go up, causing a price war between the consumer and the business trying to make a profit. Folks, the story is still developing. That's why number 7 also made it to the top this week. Big headline. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made this week for you to keep you informed. Folks, if you do want to show some support, it does not take much. All I have to do is visit the business 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio, or you can stop on the website at the Mediator.com website on the screen, and you can buy something to show some support, folks, and all the other programs we do here. Story number 8: inflation and high prices are still a concern 1 month into 2025. The Washington Post has a report that really puts inflation at the top of everyone's list of concerns. Now, prices rose by 2.9% annually in December. This is, well, that's not what got the story in, though. The fact that there is optimism headed into the next administration, which is the Trump administration, because economically things seem to be leveling off. If the Trump administration can put an end to the global frustrations and the wars that are going on, and focus more on bringing down prices. That's what's all in this report. And that's why inflation and prices continue to be at top headlines, because this is going to be a big problem headed into 2025 if people cannot pay their bills because of the cost of living. Folks, this story is still developing. So number 8 made to the top this week. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just a man in the middle navigating your story just to keep people informed. Well, folks, if you do want to show some support, if you want to show some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Or you can stop at the store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio, and see my smiling face. Well, folks, I am out of here. We're headed into Black History Month. So I hope you all remember and think about Black historians and the fact of how America was founded and how it has developed into a nation today. Well, folks, I am out here. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator this week with me, Brian West. Have a good week, everybody. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.